98.1.
Yeah.
Love music. Love
Don't touch
life.
the screen. Go live on start, yeah? No, no. Yep, yep, yep.
Pay financials have zero worries when it's time to pay your bills, rent, school fees, and vacation. We'll be here making it easy for you.
Visit our website www.pagefinancials.com or call 01700 Page Financials TV.
It's Valentine and Ayo on the Smooth Breakfast Show. Stay tuned. The Smooth Breakfast presents the headlines, the stories, the news. In-depth analysis on national current affairs.
Go live.
Freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1.
Headlines, headlines. Get quick access to loans from Page Financials. Page Financials, taking you further.
Good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us today for Freshly Pressed 981. It's a part of Smooth's Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. My name is Valentine Uhu. Welcome to Monday, and welcome Cheta Wanze. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a great day. Forza Italia.
Forza Italia, ciao. And welcome Lakunle 70. Good morning.
Good morning, Valentine. Good morning, Cheta. Good morning, Lagos.
Good to have you join us for this conversation today. All right, let's start with our first story. But before that, a quick reminder here: we're streaming live on YouTube, Smooth 981 FM Lagos, on what Instagram at Valentine Ohu. Send messages to WhatsApp 0809 4440981. That's 0809 4440981. Cheta COVID-19 third wave looming. States run out of vaccines. About 9,057 travelers disappeared. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo lamenting this said that only 1% of the state's residents have received COVID-19 vaccines so far. What are your thoughts on this report?
There's really nothing to think. It's just to state the facts. It looks like this Delta variant that they've been talking about has hit. I think it's important to briefly explain what the Delta variant is. Basically, viruses mutate each time they replicate, and the World Health Organization has adopted a Greek notation system for those mutations over time. So essentially, when they say delta, usually with Greek, you have alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, blah, blah, blah. So when they say delta, it means that this is essentially the fourth generation of the novel coronavirus of 2019. Um, so, and this particular variant spreads faster and apparently is more dangerous. I'm trying to find the non-medical words to use. So dangerous is what I came upon. Now, having said all of that, basically to set the tone for just how virulent this one is, and they said it's up to 250 times more um, virulent than the previous variants. You now understand that we have to be careful. Um, and this is where the attitude of our people comes into play. Not just our governments. It's all too easy to sit down and bash the government. But I had a very interesting two experiences recently. The first one was when I went to take my second shot. When my wife and myself arrived at the clinic for the second jab, we were the only ones who were present. Um, and one of the nurses was sitting down and looking extremely bored. And she said something in Yoruba to someone else, which my wife later told me what she said. That's now only these two people don't come. Now this was 9:30 in the morning. Now only these two people don't come. Yesterday nobody come. I should be going home. At 9:30. She was that bored that at 9:30 she was ready to go home. So from what that tells me is that people many people who probably have taken the first job have just taken it and have forgotten about it. We are not testing enough. Granted, yes, there's also always the issue of the classic Nigerian government inefficiency, but also the complacency of the Nigerian people. Some people will want to turn it around and say, "Oh, advocacy programs and have not been enough." I disagree. I know that there have been advocacy programs. There's a cynicism, um, which again is justifiable from the Nigerian context, but this is a public health issue and we should be careful. And it's now brings me to one of the things that was highlighted in the story, which I'm searching for here. Um, but it's the fact that vaccines have expired
Yes.
in
July
in
9th.
various states.
July 9th.
So they have doses, but because people haven't been coming to get choked, the thing has just expired. And that's what I want to focus on. The fact that we have become complacent about this whole thing. I know it's difficult wearing the mask. I tend to forget my mask occasionally.
It is difficult. It's
Um,
uncomfortable.
but I tend to forget my mask occasionally. But in my defense, I've had my two jabs. What about people who haven't had? Yeah, we have an almost non-existent health system, so we don't want to see the strain that this thing is capable of bringing. And for countries like ours that have inadvertently celebrated that we've conquered COVID, I have just one country, India. They actually celebrated conquering COVID, and look what's happened.
Exactly. That's a good example there. But vaccines expiring vis-a-vis Lagos running out of the first supply they had, and the second 10,000 doses. I mean, would you say Lagos has a better response compared to other states?
I don't know. I mean, Lagos says that it has vaccinated only 1% of residents. Ekiti has vaccinated 2%. So, if it's percentage-wise, Ekiti has done better.
Yeah, but Ekiti population is
Lagos is
nothing
a lot
compared to
more
Lagos.
crowded than Ekiti. Yes,
Right.
I agree. So, if you look at it in terms of absolute numbers, Lagos has vaccinated more people, but 1%, 2%, those are very poor numbers.
I know.
And yes, I understand that we are a beggar nation, so we begged for the vaccines that we got. It was allocation, but nevertheless, at least the very least you could do to show you are serious is vaccinate with every single dose that you were given.
Perhaps they should find other means of getting the vaccines to the populace. Maybe send it to areas that you least expect. As with the first dose, the first time it was people were asked to go to these health centers. Health centers, and a lot of more people were scared. Now they've taken the first dose. A lot of people are reluctant to go get the second jab. Abamia Karakiri says, "Good morning, guys. I hope those that are fully vaccinated can't contract this Delta variant. Cheers to the new week."
Well,
There's no
we
confirmation
don't
yet.
know. Basically, the AstraZeneca vaccine which came here is 96% effective, which means that out of every 100 people that have been jabbed with AstraZeneca, 4 can still catch it.
That's right.
So
Femi from VI says, "Good morning, Chata. Fake narratives on WhatsApp forwards is probably responsible for a drop of Nigerians or in Nigerians showing up at vaccine centers," and I agree. Thank you, Femi. Shanu says, "Chata touched on the most critical parts of the COVID-19 issue. Many of us are complacent, and this attitude is so painful and frustrating to acknowledge. I had cause to be schooling a friend about wearing face masks over the weekend. It's totally unacceptable how we take things for granted and we'll turn around at the end and blame government. We should do more at individual levels to be more responsible." Shano from Ilupeju, thank you so much. Also reminds you of what the governor said. Babajide Sanwo said that the measures to curb COVID-19 are back in full force in terms of restriction of people gatherings, public gatherings to not more than
It's not
50
true.
people, and also ensuring
when I
that,
was coming here this morning,
Hang on.
I saw one club.
yeah, I mean, we know the club, right? So hopefully implementation will be key in terms of
But those girls coming out were hot,
serving
sha.
deterrence. Chata, you shouldn't be looking at those. You're married. All right, let's move on to the next. Our next story: Lakunle, federal government to repeal lottery gaming acts, according to the Guardian. The federal government is planning, according to this story, to take up the approved central monitoring system, repealing the National Lottery Act of 2005 and Gaming Act of 2021. What does this really mean, Lakunle?
Well, the first thing that crossed my mind with the story is that okay, so the government is looking for money. Um, Lottery, betting, gaming is one place where there's a lot of money. Every street corner has at least one of those small red boxes. There's hardly any street you go to where you don't see a big notice, something, something bed, this, that bed, that, all over the place. So, aside from paying taxes, if this organization pay their taxes, okay, so there are other taxes that the government can get from them, like for example, licensing, regulatory levies, and all that they can get from these people. So there is a federal lottery commission that's been set up by the act by this act to administer lottery and gaming in Nigeria and to moderate what happens there. Okay, so and there's a fund that this act also mandates that commission to set up, which is a percentage of the monies they get from licensing and the rest of it goes to, which was actually this story is all about that the commission actually went to donate medical equipment to federal and state hospitals in Bauchi. Now, where this thing comes to is also the same argument we have about what happens to money of VAT. Okay, so I hope that this does not become another avenue where the brickbats will come. You don't allow gaming, lottery, gambling in your state. Why should you share from the money from that other states that allow it? Meanwhile, I think that there's a case on this. Lagos State has been challenging the federal government that um, lottery licensing should not be a federal exclusive federal.
It should be on the
That
exclusive list.
it should be on the concurrent list. So they've also set up their own. So which means that for every gaming, lottery, or betting agency that wants to operate within the confines of Lagos, it must take the license of Lagos and then take the license of the federal government. So if all the 36 states go Lagos way, that means that everybody will do, each company will have 37 licenses just to do gaming to practice in Nigeria.
That could very well lead to double taxation.
Absolutely, they'll pay the same things in all those places. So what my own hope and suggestion would be that in repealing these acts, the federal government should invite the states commissions and let them all sit together and have a singular law for administration of gaming and lottery in Nigeria, so that if it's the way to make money, let all of them make the money easily and give government its due.
Since we're all looking towards non-oil revenue,
yes,
sure, anything. Speaking of money, making money, showing in revenue, a lot of questions still stand to be asked in terms of accountability, in terms of reporting, financial reporting in the past years. 2020 didn't look quite good, as we'll see in the next story. Cheta, I'd love your thoughts on the Premium Times report on Nigeria. They said Nigeria spent 97% of revenue on debt servicing in 2020. I caught a wind of the report shared by Budge IT. That was last week. Thank you. Budget.
You see yourself, since you're offering my mic.
It's budget. Thank you, Lavely, for sharing that to me on social media. But Cheta, what are your thoughts?
I mean, it's something that I, for example, have been screaming about for a long time. I've talked about it on this show. Unfortunately, the last time I talked about it on this show, debt spend, the ratio was 88%. And I remember giving an analogy, saying that if Valentine was, it was Valentine that I used. That's for every 100 naira he earns, 88 naira goes on BC. and then he has 12 naira left, and then he's of the 12 naira, he's now paying school fees of 25 naira, which means that's even before the month starts, he already has to borrow 13 naira. That's what Nigeria essentially is. Um, Now, when you look into the numbers, it's even more of a tragic look, because we are spending, we're budgeting, our revenues are performing at roughly 60% of budgeted revenues, and then we are spending even more than budgeted expenditure. So there's a problem. Nigeria is clearly in a financial crisis. I think it's a good thing, in a roundabout way, because it will help us to actually talk through in this country. If you get my point. But that's by the way. Let's look at the current situation, which is that the majority of the the debt sustainability profile has been rising. What that means is that we are going to get to a point where they will simply stop paying salaries. And that point is going to come sooner than expected.
Could that be the reason why that, I think it was Kano State or Kano State decided to cut salaries by half? Was that part of the reason?
Well, that's a state government problem. The budget report talked entirely about the FG. So, but one thing that I can almost certainly guarantee is that, to a large extent, the states are in a worse situation than the FG, because we have this thing of everybody's always looking at Abuja and forgetting about the mini emperors in the various states. Having said that, I would go back to what I said here in 2015, which is we need to let the state sink or swim. And we need to, as harsh as it is, we need to sack a lot of people. Which brings us to the whole El Rufai versus Labour thing that is happening in Kaduna and all of that. It's about timing. Unfortunately, these things are things that need to be done in a planned manner, not in a sudden manner. But we have a very unfortunate habit in this country of kicking the can down the road until making the right decision becomes painful. And that's where we are. If we had done all of this rationalization, as was recommended in the Oronsaye reports back in 2012, and recommended by the Ahmed Judah Committee back in 2015, we won't be here. But then 2012, your interns here were still in primary school in 2012.
No, in secondary.
I'm looking at them. They were in primary school.
You were in primary school in 2012.
You see?
No. You said no.
No, I saw them nodding yes. Anyway, the point is, what we could have done 9 years ago that would have actually helped. Now we're actually staring it in the face, and it will be painful. So let us get ready for a lot of pain, because it is coming.
Was the pain before the solution, right? But that depends on whether the
The pain
government
is part of the
exercises,
solution.
Political will.
The pain is part of. See, whether the Buhari government will not do it, the next government will be forced to do it.
Speaking of which, we'll go into the intervention by the federal government, especially through the committee they set up to end the Kaduna government and NLC disputes in a bit. Stay with us. You're listening to Freshly Pressed 981.
Imagine a life with zero worries. Imagine a world where you're relaxed and free. Where all your dreams
With Pay Financial, you have zero worries when it's time to pay your bills, rent, school fees, and vacation. We'll be here making it easy for you.
Visit our website www.pagefinancials.com or call 01 700 7213. Page Financials, taking you further.
Glad to know you're there. You're listening to Freshly Pressed 981 as a part of Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. Orisha on WhatsApp says, we went down this road with cement when Dangote came on stream with cement. Now we're doing the same with crude. And guess who could benefit from this cause or clause? After getting dollars at concessionary rates to build refineries, uh, let supply decide the price. Okay, Fabian from Ekpe says the government hasn't done enough in terms of advocacy and motivating the populace to vaccinate. As everyone needs to be responsible, wearing face masks, keeping safe distance, etc. Yemi from Marina says, "Oh, good morning, guys. Your analysis is very apt. When I went for my first shot, the scenery was like they unleashed these Agbero and hoodlums, but the second shot was easy peasy in the same Yaba location. We have to be careful though. This Delta variant is something to be watchful for." And he said, "Oh, I forgot to mention that police have been arresting people who violate the curfew. Sakba was almost arrested on Friday. Who's that? Okay. Thank you so much for that. Yemi, Femi, actually from VI says America had the same problem with vaccine hesitation, but they used incentives to drive vaccinations. Incentives, eh? All right. Luckily, federal government inaugurates a committee to end the Kaduna government NLC disputes. This was announced yesterday, saying first of all, we know this has been going on for a while about the Labour Congress and the Labour unions in that state and Erufai's grand stance on his call to say that the Labour Union are actually not being complicit with what the state needs in terms of encouraging their staff to work, even understanding the economic situation of the state. But what are your thoughts?
Um, Two quick ones. One, the federal government may be acting in good faith, acting big brother here. If the two parties involved in Kaduna are at the extreme ends of their standpoints, governor says I'm sacking, NLC says no, we're not going to allow you. So if the federal government is intervening to bring the two parties to the table to resolve whatever the differences are, it's good for Kaduna State. It's good for everybody who stands to benefit from a resolution of the imbroglio. Two, the first one is actually moral. Second one is, does the law allow the federal government to intervene in a labor dispute between a state government and its employees? That's another conversation entirely on its own. Now, we know that, like Cheta just alluded to earlier, all the states are broke. They earn 100 naira, they spend 102 naira to pay salaries. So if the man says, for me to be able to pay salaries and to do other things, the number of people I pay has to reduce. There is some reasonability in it. Yes. How he gets to reduce that bill from 102 to a manageable, say, 40 naira is now the issue that everybody should face. And that's the one that politics enter, that I don't want to be the one to be referenced to have done so and so and so in the history of this state. Let's keep pushing it forward. Let's keep pushing it forward. One day, like they say in my village, monkey will go market, no go come back. They will suddenly wake up and there'll be no money to even pay 1 naira at all.
But the federal government has intervening. Are we any better, or is the federal government any better? 97% on expenditure.
The federal government is
Oh,
not going to play
debt service.
big brother to all the states for infinity. They have their own problem to solve. We
They'll
just
do
had
it
now
to-
they are
they'll do it to-
spending 97 of every 100 naira to keep their own expenditure going.
They will do it till 2023.
There's a time limit.
That's
After
a reality.
2023, what happens? So
Who knows?
this decision has
Father
to
Christmas.
be taken. It's going to be difficult, but how do we do it? How about facing the disengagement? Not say I'm sacking you today and that's it. How about saying, okay, over the next 5 years, this is what we will do, and in those 5 years, we will make this available so that those of you who wants to go, first start with who wants to voluntarily retire. This is the incentive for voluntary retirement, no matter the number of years you have spent. Put those things on the table. Let these guys see something in front of them that makes wanting to go.
But the real
Uncle,
question is, the person you're referring to, is he willing, is in his nature to do that kind of
Uncle,
thing? But hold on.
The problem with what Lakunle is saying is that it makes sense. And that's a problem.
because it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
you you have to put yourself in the mindset of it. They're only thinking of the next election. And that's the problem with Lakunde. He's thinking of logic. Think of the next election, and when you think of the next election, then
You know,
you
peace.
you bring a more elevated solution.
Interesting. Cheta, now that you have the microphone, let's speak on this issue as published by the Punch newspaper. Representatives to make presidents, governors lose seats after defection.
Nobody will sign
It
it.
says here to scale through the second reading. That's exactly my question. Would it scale through? Do you think anybody
It
will
will scale
support
through the
this?
second reading. It will get to this, and then Gwajabi Amila will kill it because he plans to defect to ACN soon. So
So it won't favor him. Selfish interest, eh?
that kind of thing.
Let's move on now. Messages here from Femi from VI. Okay, thank you for taking this earlier. Jane says, I remember wearing my mask in Yaba and they almost lynched me saying COVID not fake. Come out, that thing for your face. Thank you, Jane. Sorry I had to read it in that voice because that's how I imagined it to sound. Ibrahim says, let's see who is without seeing cast the first stone. Federal government should go and sort out their own mess. Thank you, Ibrahim. Jerry Ruba says, restructuring is the only way to go. National Assembly wages and salaries should be reduced to reflect the current situation of the nation. Thank you, Jerry, from Barua. Dan Okuda says from Igondo, if we use 96% of our revenue,
97.
It's actually
97.
97.
It's actually 97.
to service debt, why then do the finance minister and the DMO keep on saying that there is nothing to worry about on our borrowing spree? It's called damage control.
No, again, you have to think about what they are thinking of.
Right.
I think it's important for us in the art of negotiation. When you are entering the table with your opponent, you try to think about what he's thinking of as well. And so many times we think so. We all think that we want a better country, so they want a better country too. No, you might want a better country. The next person wants a better pocket. Once you can properly scope what the other person is thinking of, nothing will surprise you.
Or better manage our expectations, eh?
That kind of thing.
Cheta, this story from this day newspaper, does it pique your interest? Police confirm abduction of Emir, 10 royal family members. Quite daring.
I
you
don't
think?
know what to say about this story. I mean, I called some of my South because Kajuru is in Southern Kaduna. I called some of my Southern Kaduna friends yesterday to ask their thoughts so that it will go into my analysis for a client later today, and I found them in a rather celebratory mood, kind of like, and it was like, what is an emerald doing in Kajuru? And for me, that's threw me off completely as saying, oh, so we're not even talking about the fact that potentially this man and his family are in danger. We're talking of the geopolitical thing.
I hear it's
And
85. Like it's really old.
That's for me is a problem. We can't solve this problem of terrorism because calling it banditry doesn't do us a service. We can't solve this terrorism problem if people's minds are not in it. And yes, of course, a lot of the blame is at the doorstep of President Buhari because he pretends it doesn't exist, and he's the all the security services reports to him. Ultimately, the buck stops at his table. But the president has his share in the blame, the governor has his share in the blame, and even the people have their share in the blame. We are so divided by the actions of the president. I blame everything on the president. I think we have to be very clear on that. But when you all understand that your president is, I can't say what I wanted to say on breakfast radio. When you all understand that your president is bleep, then at least try to help yourselves somehow. So it's ironic that thing that the Katsina governor Masari said, ironically, there's some truth to it. Try to help yourselves. But then that now brings another angle, which is an angle that is not talked about much, which is when people try to help themselves, suddenly people from the security services show up and prevent them from helping themselves. So we've entered into a closed loop, and that closed loop, it will touch everybody, including you, including me, including Lakunle.
So what do we do? Help ourselves? With whose support?
Maybe I can give you a knife so you cut your throats.
No,
You know, that kind of stuff.
that's not helping myself.
It could be.
It's
So
self-deprecating. Teta, thank you so much, though. I accept the sarcasm. Lakole, thank you. Lakunle is at Lakunle70. Cheta is at Checkstar, CHXTA. Let's extend the conversation to social media. In the meantime, stay tuned to Smooth Breakfast because in 10 minutes, I'll open up the phone line to you to share your thoughts through voice calls to 0144 I'm Valentine Ogu.
Get quick access to loans from Page
Thank you.
Financials.
Yeah.